session. I know it's the afternoon session, it's been a long day for many of you who just got in this morning. I want to talk around AI, but more specifically around the ecosystem around AI, artificial intelligence, and how the different components come together, and why is AI sitting at the forefront of this technology choice of many businesses in their digital transformation journey at this point in time, and what we can expect going forward. So AI, and I was joking about this, let us remote win the fight, because as humans, that's what we do, right? One of the key things that makes us as humans different from machines are that machines are very binary, and what they do lack is the intuition and instinct that we as human beings have. So when we talk AI, and I'm sure you've heard this, is it really artificial intelligence, or do we view it as augmented intelligence? And that's something maybe John McCarthy thought about when he coined the term artificial intelligence way back in 1955. So let's understand where we're coming from an AI perspective, right? And we've seen some great case studies around the application of AI in marketing, the application of AI in the legal fraternity. I'm from a company called DFA, Dark Fiber Africa, and we're an infrastructure company that also provides managed services and connectivity. We own a company called SquidNet, which is a Sigfox network operating in South Africa. So they're an IoT network, a network purpose-built for connecting sensors and bringing the data back to the network, to clients, for analysis and the creation of new use cases that will support disruptive business models. And we're also a fiber-to-the-home provider. So one of the things that we do as well is that we connect the mobile towers. We backhaul a lot of traffic for mobile operators on our fiber network. And that's important, when you start looking at as one component of the AI ecosystem. So let's talk about AI and where we've seen it evolve from. So if you remember back in the days, it's a simple story, right? Here there were machines that were running, and there were some very, I'll call it rudimentary heuristics type models. And then it came to these algorithms, but they were very kind of simple algorithms, and purely because the data wasn't there, the capacity to process and handle the data was not there. And way back when the first, kind of proof case came to light, it was when Watson 1 beat Kasparov, right? You guys remember that one? And that was a very, the first showcase of AI in action, right? Because, chess is a strategy game. There's many moves. And here was this machine that could process the move made by the player, run some algorithm in the back, if then, why, then, and forecast the next move. But it was very augmented by human beings, right? If you remember that case study, because there were some engineers at the back, and then they would advise of the move. So that happened. Just step a couple of years later, and then came Watson 2. Now, Watson 2 was fundamentally different, right? Because if you remember, Watson 2 was, hey, we're playing a game of Double Jeopardy. Double Jeopardy is a game that looks at knowledge and content, right? General knowledge across many facets, right? And if you ever get to watch a video, if you haven't, just Google it. This machine beat the top person, finalist in Double Jeopardy, purely because it was able to process a verbal question like, what's the capital of Russia, for example, and it had to process that information. It had to go back into a directory. It had to search, databases that were cataloged, find the correct answer, come back, and then verbalize it and say the capital of Russia is Moscow. But just imagine the amount of data processing that had to happen in those milliseconds, right? So that was the second one. But once again, it was the machine had to go and reference, but we had to populate those databases of information. Then came late 2017, Google has to do it, right? So here comes Alphabet Go. And Alphabet Go developed an AI, DeepMind, to play to play Go. Now, Go is an ancient Eastern strategy game, right? And I tried to figure this thing out, and it's hectic, right? Because there's no written rules for Go. It's a move game where you move beads and you block, and eventually the game comes and they decide who's the winner. But it's really one of the most difficult games. So give you an idea how difficult it is. For every chess move, if I make a move, there'll be 40 outcomes, possibly 40 outcomes. And that's what makes chess players so good, to be able to process that move and what the possible outcomes are. In Go, when you make one move, there are 200 possible outcomes for the player, which in turn results in about around 250 possible moves. So just the exponential array of choices for someone to process is difficult, right? So, and Go was built, I mean, great Go people are great strategists, but also very high level of intuition. And here comes the machine and beats the Go grandmaster. Now, how was this possible? Because how could you reference a database for that? So what they did was they used something called deep learning. We know the technology deep learning, DeepMind. And they programmed the many moves of Go over the times that were recorded into a database, let's call it a reference source. And the AI platform was able to figure out these moves, and it got better and better at it. So it was not programmed to play Go, it learned to play Go. And that tells us where AI has come so quickly now. Where it's going to go, I mean, we've heard the use cases around marketing law, but when you start looking at future technologies, because AI does not exist in a vacuum, right? When you start looking at future business models or future technologies, such as autonomous driving as an example, imagine the level of intuition that you need, and that vehicle needs when it sees a child crossing a road and it needs to reference and brake and veer off. It's going to be exponential, right, from a power and processing perspective. What's made this possible, I would call them a number of things, but I'll just want to highlight about three. The first one is the availability of data. So we've got a lot more data points coming on now. So it gives a higher level of context and predictability. Because three things that the AI needs to do, it needs to create predictability, proactively, so proactiveness, support that, and create preventativeness or support preventativeness, right? So in a highly predictable environment, you need a lot more contextual data, to get those contextual type algorithms. So data is becoming available. And if you look at the Internet of Things, 20 million, 50 billion, pick a number, but the point is it's a lot of more endpoints coming onto the system or into the ecosystem that create a lot more data that can be brought into a network or a central point for processing it much more cheaply. That's the first thing. The second thing is the availability of technology or bandwidth and technology. So, I mean, we're at AfricaCom, which is a carrier type conference. We know 5G is on the agenda. It will enable it. Fiber as well. I mean, even the saying is that as the world becomes more wireless, it becomes more fixed, because you need resilient, high-speed connectivity to backhaul that infrastructure, whether it's a base station, whether it's connecting to a platform. So connectivity is becoming more pervasive, more affordable, and it's increasing in capacity and decreasing price. It's the application of Moore's law. The third thing that's making it a lot more, they're really pushing the agenda on AI is, I mean, we all come from business environments, right? And we know the challenge of competitiveness that's facing our business. So, normal lean or value engineering got you to a certain level of optimization in your business. Now you need to get to the next level, and that's where AI, as a tool enables us to do that. Not just optimizing business from a cost structure and efficiency perspective, but also creating new disruptive business models. I mean, we saw 2 case studies now in terms of how AI will disrupt the legal fraternity. It's already being done in the US, by the way. Case reference and case processing is being done through an AI algorithm. And we've also, and we're going to see it more and more in the audit environment. And we saw how AI is influencing or making its impact in terms of marketing, for contextual marketing. So wherever you are on your journey as a business, right? You could. This is a useful tool, and this was done by Accenture. It's called the application of AI, the AI quotient. Tells you where you want to be from a business, because AI has different impact on different businesses. And surely, from a business perspective, each business, even if they're in the same vertical, have different levels of maturity, right? So it's a useful framework, but what's important is to see that companies were, 10, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, AI, big data was a big topic that was being talked about. Here we're seeing a lot of action, and we've seen banks, Standard Bank was using Watson. We as a business, and we have fiber business and a wholesale fiber network, an infrastructure operator, and we're already using AI at a level for predictive fault management. So, using different data sets to predict where are hotspots in the area on the physical fiber, to predict faults, which enables us to increase our uptime. We'll be using AI further in other areas of the business. We've got our Portia, who heads up our HR function, and we're seeing how, in the HR fraternity, how profiling on candidates happens beyond just the CV, right? And beyond just the psychometrics, but also using social media posts and links to other third-party subscriptions to profile candidates more accurately, to see whether they have not just the skill set to fulfill the role, but also have the culture and attitude matched to the business. So how do we enable AI? So we talked about AI, how it's evolved, the application of AI, the models that can be used for you as a business to reference. Do you want to be, let me just go back to that slide. Do you want to be an inventor, which means you invest a lot and to build the capability for yourself, which is what the previous speaker was doing, because they're disrupting their mobile business, right? And taking mobile subscription services driven by very artificially intelligent driven marketing campaigns to the operators. Or you can be a collaborator, meaning I don't really need to build these tool sets. It's lightweight for me. I can consume what's available, and we see the capability being there. So in the enabled data, I talked about data, having data sets and data sets being more available. Connectivity we talked about already, being more pervasive, lower cost, more appropriate. We never, just recently we're seeing low power wide area networks being rolled out. We've rolled out one already. So Sputnik's got over 85% coverage to bring back sensor data. So that connectivity is there. We're seeing fiber infrastructure being rolled out. We've rolled out in excess of 10,000 kilometers of fiber in the metro networks, and we even have long haul routes. And what that enables a company to do is get the connectivity they require to consume services. As an example, you don't need to go and build it in-house. You can build your AI on a Azure stack or on a AWS stack, and you get the benefit of cloud. So it's reducing the cost barrier to adopting and developing AI. Platforms. So Amazon Web Services, AWS, Microsoft Azure, LA Cloud are just some of those platforms that are available to be consumed in cloud environment. What we see is that even when you start looking at vendors now, they're moving away from the traditional enterprise license type agreements to purely cloud-based, which means they're very scalable, and the APIs are very exposed, right? meaning it enables a very much more innovative environment. In the previous years, where APIs were very closed and proprietary, it was difficult for you to build an application across different platforms. You had to stick with one vendor for the entire stack. However, now you can be using the analytics platform from Azure or from IBM, and the storage from someone else, and the workflow SCADA platform from a different cloud provider. So you have choice in terms of what's more appropriate for you to stitch together an AI strategy, platform, and service and application that's more appropriate to your business and to your customers. So in conclusion, AI is here to stay. It's going to grow more. We know that. The challenges that we still see is skills around AI, but that will come. The challenges is also to find the compelling use cases. I mean, one key thing to remember: if using AI creates more processes in your business, then it defeats the purpose. So creating compelling use cases for AI. The other difficult challenge is the investment to justify the benefits, because in many companies, this may, from the PwC report, investing in AI, investing in platforms, investing in technology may seem expensive and pricey at first, and businesses still need to justify the investment and the return on it. However, in many cases, this is looked at in the traditional way, along the traditional model. One of the ways to justify and really validate the application of AI is how it kind of differentiates your service model, how it disrupts your service model, and how it creates new business models that you can take to market. Thank you.